You are watching and listening to Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV on YouTube and your favourite podcasts.
Happy holidays, I guess?
Hello, Matt Elliott here.
Hi, Alan Smith here.
Hey guys, Ian Hume here.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here.
Be sure to watch
Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV
for all the latest Leicester City news and information.
You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels.
for the latest updates and news on Leicester City Football.
Come on, you foxes!
The X on the Pitch Show with Chris and Fox Julian Watts, looking back at the past week at all things Leicester City.
Right, Chris.
All right there, all right at the back. How are you doing? How the devil are you all? Welcome along. Second time tonight. I thought I'd get changed. Get into the spirit. It's a Christmas special. Yes, it is. Welcome along if you are watching us on YouTube, Facebook or Twitter, or listening to us via the podcast on Spotify, Amazon, Google, or your favourite podcast platform. This is Leicester Till I Die, and this is where you can watch us and you can listen to us.
Watch us on YouTube. Listen on your favourite podcast platform or ask your smart speaker to play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Subscribe, like, follow, and join in now.
It is, and it's the last one before Christmas of the X on the Pitch show. And we're very lucky to have him tonight because tomorrow night, he has just informed me, is his Christmas party. So don't know what state he'll be in, but live from a stationery cupboard tonight, let's welcome him in. Julian, good evening, sir. Looking very resplendent.
Thank you very much, Krista. I thought I'd try and make the effort for the last show for this year.
I'm impressed that you just told me that it's it's just your actual training top from when you were at Leicester, and it still fits you.
Well, it's not quite so true. It was the Leicester Legends used to play about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. So I managed to, yeah. So I think they gave me the XXL, and it's still sort of snug, but okay.
You see, you made me feel bad then, because I am wearing the shirt that was obviously around when you were playing, and like I said, it's not the original because the original doesn't fit me, and I had to reorder the it when it came out as when it was re-released sort of thing. But honest with you, Julian, there's a lot of women out there that will just think that whatever you wear, that you will be their top totty. And, we say each week you do seem to get these double page spreads in these magazines. Last week was it pig keeping or something? This week, can I say, and I don't know how you're going to follow this next year, mate, but you have made it into the Lidl Christmas magazine.
Hey, ask for a little, give a lot. That's me.
Well, you know how to jingle the bells, don't you? That's the thing, you know. I bet there's a few women out there you'd fill their trolley. Oh dear, honestly. Apparently Waitrose turned you down, but Lidl couldn't wait to get you. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Honestly, I'm going to miss this over Christmas, but now you thank you as always for coming along. And are you looking forward to tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's probably seems like this. I'm always a big person who just thinks Christmas or the Christmas stuff shouldn't start till December.
Yeah.
I think we get to December, that's Christmas. Before then, it's a bit, I'm not into that. And I don't like the Christmas songs being on until December. That's just me. But I think, we've had a week now. It's all sort of ramping up a little bit. I do tomorrow, which will be great. And then obviously from that, I'm sure we're going to accelerate into Christmas in the right fashion.
Well, like I say, I don't want to see any embarrassing pictures of you on Twitter with just you and a sprig of holly in a strategically placed. Although holly might not actually be the best thing to use.
Yeah, probably just cover my face.
Yeah. My mind's gone now. My mind has gone. Tonight is going to be a little bit different. Christmas special, like I said, it's the last one we're going to do before Christmas. We're going to have a quick look at a review of the Premier League so far. So basically, what we're going to do is go through all the 20 teams that are in the Premier League, and let me just get rid of that. And we will, ask you as a professional there to sort of say what sort of season they're having. So the top one would be exceeding expectations, as expected, below expectations, or just awful. So it's going to get interesting when we get to the likes of Norwich, whether they're actually awful or what we expected of them.
Yeah,
that's going to be interesting. We're going to go through it alphabetically. I think it's the fairest way. I'm going to start with Arsenal. Fans still not happy. They're a bit up and down, but they're above us, which is I'd swap places with them. 23 points, 7 wins, 6 losses. Is he turning it round, Arteta?
It seems like it, but then he's just had those couple of bad results. And, unfortunately, I mean, the league, I think this year is so difficult to predict, results and runs and what have you. And then, even Everton, I know they didn't spend a lot of money, but, Rafa Benitez certainly a good manager, and he pulls the results out of the bag last night with Damari Gray scoring that cracking winner. And, you feel like they can do that probably a little bit more often, Everton. So Arsenal probably were just the unlucky team that came up against them on that night, because Everton have been on a terrible run themselves. And, with Arsenal, they sort of had a really bad start. Then they gathered some momentum. They went on a really, really good run. And to be fair, they've just only faltered a tiny little bit. But because of the bad start, the tiny little falter a bit later in the season does look a bit worse than it actually is, because they're not, falling out the top 4. They're just not even near the top 4. So, it's a difficult one. From what I'm glad of with Arsenal, and, rightly or wrongly, because there's a lot of talk around the Leicester team at the minute, is that they stuck by the manager. And I think at another club, that manager would have long departed, and they may be in a better position. They may be in a worse position. And you never know until you put that action into place. But, when Pep Guardiola's sort of saying how great a coach he is, which actually doesn't mean he's a good manager, but it means he's a good coach. And I've had sort of that's something similar to that in my career. It's high praise indeed. And you think, he must have something about him, and, they must give him some time. I think this is probably his last season where he'll get, that little bit of leeway or allowance, because I think if it's not a promising finish into the season, I think they've probably given him ample time, and he's not really done it.
And do you think, and you were talking about, there's some disquiet at Leicester and rumblings about the management. I mean, I thought it was almost going to be back to normal this season. We've had 2 very odd seasons with the COVID and the breaks or what have you. But it hasn't. You can't call it a normal season, because, and I look at Brendan, and I was just saying this on the show I was on earlier with Craig, is that in a normal season, he might be having to look over his shoulder about his job. But as much as he's having a bad season, so are so many other managers. And the gap that there is between him and, say, 6th or 7th is only 3 points and a couple of wins, and it changes your season round.
Of course he does. And the other thing you've got to understand, I mean, is like he's worked with these players for a long time now. He's got their understanding. I think he's probably got the backing. I think we can all see where the issues kind of lie at the moment with Leicester, and it's the back line and the set piece thing, which really, really needs to be sorted quickly. But it's who do you get in? And I think I saw I think it was probably the LTID page today, someone saying get Moyes in. I don't think Moyes would want to come. I think he's in a great place with a good team and absolutely outperforming where he should be. And, we're saying we want him. I don't think he'd come to Leicester. So we have to be careful that if we all feel like, Brendan's the wrong one to depart, who's the next one that we get in that's going to really elevate us to that, regular top 6 that we're after. So I do feel we need to give him a bit of time. And this is what I've said about Brendan. I think he'd be crackers to go to a bigger club right now. And I don't know why a bigger club would come in for him right now, if I'm honest. So, it's a bit of a conundrum, but I think we all hope that he stays on his own accord. We keep him on our accord, and he actually sort of turns it around a little bit, and the results and performances improve, and we have a good finish to the season.
Yeah. We'll go on to Leicester more detail, obviously, later. So Arsenal, I've lost my mouse. There we go. So Arsenal, like I say, sat in 7th, won 7, lost 6, scored 18, conceded 22. What would you say, exceeding expectations, or as expected, or below? I don't think they can be awful this season because they're where they are.
No. I think they're probably as expected because, for me, like I say, he's been bedding in. He's had a bad season, or an average season. They've let him get time to turn it round, which he seems to have done. Just on the back of the last 2 results, it looks a bit disappointing. But I think they're probably where about they expected to be. But like I say, for him as a manager now, he's had that chance, and he really needs to push on from there. And he can't be, as expected next season. Next season, he's got to exceed.
I mean, I think once you get outside the top 5, and that sort of Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, West Ham, and Tottenham Hotspur, it's like just odd bit of green here and there for the odd win. There's no consistency outside of those top 5. Villa, new manager in. They did us at the weekend, obviously. The pupil outdoing the master. Surprised they got rid of Dean Smith, but Villa fans said they were getting a bit stale. They literally are one place above us thanks to goal difference. How do you think their season's gone?
Well, again, Dean Smith has done an incredible job at Aston Villa and really dragged them up to where they are. And I feel like it's harsh. You lose 5 games on the trot. Anyone can lose, not anyone. I mean, you wouldn't expect the top 4 to lose 5 on the trot. But like you've just said, anywhere below that, on a bad run, you could easily lose 5 on the trot. And I think it's such a shame, what they did. But, then you turn it around and Gerrard's come in and had, a great start to his time there. So I felt it was really harshly done by Dean Smith. I was really chuffed to see him straight back in another job, deservedly so. And I really hope he does do a great job there. But with Villa, you don't know what to expect because they celebrated like they'd won the Champions League when they just avoided relegation. Then they went the next season and had a really great season, comfortable, in the middle of the table. And I don't think you know what to expect from them. So I think probably a little bit below expectations on last season. Despite losing Grealish, they have had some money, to invest in players. And I think the excuse for Smith was that the players he brought in aren't quite bedded in, but I don't really buy into that. So, they've lost Grealish, they've had some money to spend, they've got quite a lot of talent there. So I would say they're just a little bit below where imagine they might be.
I was expecting them to do better at this stage, to be honest with you, based on last season and, like you say, the money they got. My favourite out of the 3 that came up to actually stay up and do best, Brentford, storming start to the season. It's kind of fallen away a little bit now. They're sat in 13th, but I'm sure if you'd given them 13th at this stage of the season, the fans would have bitten your hand off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say straight away, I'm going to put these in the exceed, and I think they've been absolutely fantastic. a breath of fresh air. Not wanting to go on about old times, but probably a bit like we were in the time. But I think they're probably had a better start than we did, and they seem to have a really good manager. The formation he's got is working well for him. I'm a huge. I mean, the two strikers are great, but I'm such a massive fan of Ivan Toney, and I think he would grace. I don't think there's many teams he wouldn't grace in the Premier League, and I'm even talking about the top clubs when you're talking about strikers. I think you look at him, and he's a very powerful athlete, and I think it's very easy to just assume that that's all he is. I actually think he's got a bit of quality about him. The way he finishes, the way he takes penalties, by the way, is unbelievable. And he sees a pass and he executes the pass as well. I think there's a lot more to come for him. And for me, he's overtaken Ollie Watkins in that, who's going to be the next sort of England striker to back Kane up, and I think he's really pushing for that right now. So big fan of his, big fan of the team. Enjoy watching them play. There's always goals in the games. They've not come up here to sit back, soak up pressure and try and grind out 0-0s and 1-0s. They've come up to compete and play against the teams, and that shows in the performances, the attitude on the pitch, the way the manager speaks. And I think they've been an absolute revelation. And I'm surprised because I thought they would be absolute relegation fodder. And I know they're still in a tricky position where they could go one way or the other. But right now, I feel like they've had a great start, and I really hope they build on it.
I totally agree with you. And for me, I always like to see, and I still don't class Leicester as a big club, but I do like it when these smaller clubs come up. And no disrespect to Brentford, but come up from the lower divisions and live that dream.
I do. I think it's fantastic. You don't want, what you don't want, and we've talked about this the other week, and it was the fact that, Norwich are coming up and down and up and down. And we were talking about the fans and the club seem happy with that. And then all of a sudden, I think it was probably the next game that they sacked the manager. So I'm not sure what we actually know. But, for a few years, it was like, wouldn't it be better if someone else came up who had a little bit more ambition than Norwich seemingly have? But they seem to have addressed that now and obviously taking on Dean Smith. But Brentford definitely didn't do that. And that is what you want. You want a championship to come up like Sheffield United did to a similar extent, take it by the scruff of the neck and go and enjoy themselves for a season. And I think hopefully if they do stay up, it'll be a bit similar to the Sheffield United situation, is that, how do they deal with the second season?
Yes. I honestly think that if they hadn't got promoted, I don't think Ivan Toney would still be at.
No, I don't. I totally agree, Chris.
I'd have been quite happy to go in for him, for Leicester.
Yeah. I would have. I've said this, and I think I've not really seen him playing live, so this might not be the right thing to say, but I would love to see him at Man City because I think he'd score so many goals, and they're crying out for a focal number 9. In my opinion, they've done well with the false 9, but I think they're really crying out for someone like him. And like I say, if you see past his physicality, I do think he's got the quality. And what better manager than Pep to get him to where he should be to fit into that team? I might be so wrong because, like I say, I don't see him live and I don't see him that often, but I really do think he's got something.
Yeah. And moving on to Brighton, I don't get into this. Potter, brilliant. Potter's the best manager ever. And when we were talking, although it was supposed to be the European show, we ended up talking about Brendan Rodgers. And I'm saying, well, if we get rid of him, who we're going to get that's any better? And it was Potter. I'm like, what has he won? He's having a good season, I grant you, but they've only scored 14 goals. That's the problem for them. But they've conceded 16. It was a great start, and they're still up there in 9th, in fairness to them. So they are doing better because I'd predicted them to be sort of in a relegation battle this season. So there's, again, proving I know nothing.
No, I think you're right, Chris. When Chris Hughton, was removed from the hot seat, I thought it was really harsh, to be honest. Yeah. And I know they just stayed just above relegation, but I still think with the resources they had, and you can go back and look at your Bournemouths as well, who you always felt every year was, if we don't get relegated, what a season we've had. And I thought that was a bit harsh. And then they bring Graham Potter in. He's obviously got something about him, and he's a good coach. But that next season, I think he barely scraped above relegation as well. So you were thinking, well, what good was that? And was it the right decision? But they have had a fantastic start, and they are. for me, I think they've had that fantastic start. They were right up there at the beginning, and all I can see them doing is slowly coming down the table. They'll not get relegated, but it's how far down they finish, because they will literally week by week just slowly slip and slip. I still think I would put them in exceeding, because they're way above where I would have said, and like you've just said yourself, you're thinking Brighton in a strong league with good teams coming up are going to be in a relegation battle. So the position they're in the start they've had, and who knows if they have a bit of resurgence, but I think they'll finish definitely in the bottom half. Not many places above the relegation zone, but right now they're definitely exceeding, and they've given themselves a good platform to have a good season on.
Totally agree with you. And if you get that good start, and they do kind of have a bit of a reality check post Christmas, you've got the points in the bag, if you like.
Yeah, and there's a few teams that we'll talk about later that haven't got the points in the bag, and however good they are, every week there's a lot of pressure, because every time you don't get that right result, you've still got that deficit, to overcome. So getting the points on the table early doors is absolutely massive for them. I'm not saying they can go and relax and play the football, but they can certainly, take one or two knocks along the road and it not be such a catastrophe for them.
Yeah. Somebody that's not got the points in the bag, and kind of my second team, because I lived there for 20 years and all my kids were born there, Burnley. Flirted with relegation last season. Last season there was 3 worse teams than them, and I think that's what saved them. But as Dan, who comes on my channel regularly from Burnley, a Burnley fan, says, there isn't necessarily 3 worse teams than him than them this season. They are struggling, and I fear for them. 1 win after 14 games, 10 points. I think this could be the season they go down.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, what Dan said was right. I don't think there are 3 worse teams, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think, again, Sean Dyche has done an incredible job there to do what he's done, to get them into that league, to keep them in there, season in, season out. I mean, his style's a bit, I would say, unorthodox compared to what the rest of the Premier League managers are sort of putting together, but he's never been shy about that. He's been a 4-4-2, very rigid, very strong. And in sort of recent seasons, he's actually had similar bad starts, but then all of a sudden they'll pull some results out of the bag, and they just sort of get away from the trouble. But I can't see that this season, and all I can see is the teams below, with the managerial changes improving. You thought Villa might have slipped down and helped them. They've had a couple of wins on the bounce. Obviously, the Newcastle situation, you would expect them to climb, although it's going to be difficult for them. Norwich seem to have been galvanised under Smith, and so all the teams around them that you're thinking, well, like Dan said, is the 3 teams below them that are worse than them. I don't think there are now, and that's it's a tough thing. And like you say, when they're not scoring goals, and because they're not particularly a flair team, they will find that difficult. And I think after so many seasons of the Premier League, everyone knows what Burnley's about. It's this rigid formation. It's very strong. It's very hard working. They're not going to cut you open, but they're going to battle. They're going to flick things on. They're going to, run onto everything. But I think for me, really, most of the Premier League teams should be able to deal with that. And I think that's where the problem lies. And for me, I think they'll be relegation fodder.
I mean, would you say that's as expected or below? For me, I think it's below expectations personally, because I thought they might still. I thought there'd been a relegation battle, but I didn't see them being as bad as they've been. So for me, it's below. But what about yourself?
Yeah, I would say that, because we always think Burnley every year. Like I say, we know every year what they are going to be, what they're going to give, and it is it is that sort of lower to mid-table position that they'll go and get a result here and there, and they'll go and upset someone. And this season, they don't really seem to be able to do that. And so, for me, I before the season, I would have said, they'll grind it out. They'll get enough points. Right now, I don't think they can.
No, I mean, we're a third of the way through the season. So, if they carry on like this, 30 points might not be enough. And it's funny to think that it wasn't that long ago they were in our position in the Europa League.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's a sad thing, but I think when you look at the real good managers and clubs, and again, I'm not criticising Sean. I think he's done an amazing job, and I played with him at Bristol, so I know the lad. But they're constantly evolving and changing what they do. Pep's had his fullbacks tucking into midfield. He's had his fullbacks playing as wingers. And it changes every season, and they seem to have these new ideas and evolve, and that's where they catch people off guard because they're not quite sure what to expect. But when you've played against the same team for year in, year out, you sort of know what you're getting and you can plan for it better. And I think that's where Burnley suffer. Yeah.
Moving on, my favourites to win the Premier League this season, and I haven't seen anything that changes my thoughts on that. Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, after I think it was the first result, they absolutely battered someone. And I watched the game and I thought, blimey, these are an absolute title contender. I agreed with you on that then, Chris. I'm not so sure now, but I think they've got a very good manager, obviously. I mean, again, it was difficult with the Frank Lampard situation, what he's done for the club and the way he came in at a point where he was probably the only person they could have took on as manager with all the young players. They got the transfer embargoes and did a really good job with that. But then, unfortunately, when you spend a lot of money, that's when the pressure happens. And Tuchel, to be fair to him, has come in and grabbed it by the scruff of the neck, literally. He seems to have the rotation right, which all the best managers do. He's sticking to his formation. Doesn't matter who he plays, basically. His players fit into that. And he's really got them at it, scoring goals, difficult to beat. Defensively, I think they're really, really strong. And, I mean, right now, I still feel like just Man City have just... the Pep's team, and he just seems to change something and pull something a bit better out the bag every year. But I definitely think there'll be, it'll be between City and Chelsea for me at the moment. So, and I would say on that, I don't know if that's exceeding or as expected, because before the season,
I think it's probably as expected. I think we're talking about the Champions League winners here, aren't we, from last season? I'd probably say they're doing what we would expect them to do. Another team proving, as I know literally nothing about football, although they have hit a bit of a rough patch in the last few games. Crystal Palace with the new manager Patrick Vieira.
Yeah, again, they had a bad start, and you thought, is that the right managerial choice? What a legend of a player. But then you can see that he's beginning to get his message through. But it's the same as we talked about Villa. Any team in that position that Palace are in, they haven't got an amazing 11. They've got a really good 11 with a few exceptional players in there. And on a day, they're going to go and beat a team, but also they could easily lose 5 on the bounce, just like Villa did. Or, it's the same kind of scenario. When you look at the top sort of 4 or 5 teams, they've got a squad and they've got 11 great players and they've got about 4 or 5 waiting in the wings. These guys haven't, but they have got some wonderful players that make up that, that 11. And that's where I think, Palace are. But for me, I know it sounds probably difficult on this chart. I would say they're exceeding, because if it was as expected, I thought they'd be actually down there scrapping away, with everybody else, because of the last couple of seasons. It seems to have got slightly worse, and then Vieira comes in and the results don't go well, and then he sort of turns it around, and he's got Benteke scoring goals, which he must be a miracle worker. I don't know about Graham Potter, so that's more like Harry Potter. So, but he has, and that's a great thing. And so I think they're doing well. Again, it's another one that I hope they get a bit of resurgence, a bit like the Everton situation. Seems like a good manager, got a similar kind of squad. They can go and win a few games, and they can go and lose a few games, and it's difficult for those teams, if I'm honest, to find the consistency.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Exceeding expectations, 100%. I had them in a relegation battle. It's such a funny season to try and predict results, as anybody who watches the prediction show will know. If I get one right, I'm lucky, But Palace, I do think they are actually doing better than I thought they would. Can't say the same about Everton, unfortunately. Down in 12th, a point behind us. Yeah, I mean, they got the win against Arsenal. They They needed it after three losses on the bounce. They sat there in 12th, won 5, lost 7. I thought, to be honest with you, that they'd had the money the past couple of seasons. They'd gone out and built up quite a good squad. Rafa knew what he was doing. He's an experienced manager. I expected them to be up there doing a Leicester, challenging for the sort of the 5th, 4th, 5th, 6th position. It's all going wrong.
It is, and he came in and had a great start. I mean, I think there's a big thing, like you say, that I think it's 500 million they've spent with the previous managers. Obviously, then Rafa came in and spent about 1.2, I think, on Damari Gray. But they have got some qualities there. I mean, there's Richarlison. They got the lad, I think Bellamy, who played at the back, who's a young up and coming. There's a few good players in there. I love the defensive mid, Alan. I think he's a fantastic player. And obviously Townsend and people like that they've brought in who have still got something to offer in the league. So for me, probably below where we thought they would have been. But again, I think they just they've suffered with a couple of injuries. And like they had a really good start, and it's a good job they did, because if they hadn't and had this run that they've just had, they would really be in trouble right now. But they're not quite doing what we thought they'd do. I thought they'd be a lot more organised and concede less goals under Benitez. A very good manager. So just a bit below par for me. And like I say, another club that I like, because they're a big club, and it's sad when you see big clubs struggling, and they shouldn't really struggle like that. And I think Carragher was on the TV the other night saying that they're a joke, and the sporting director's left, and there just seems to be a lot of things happening off the pitch there that I'm not saying they're affecting it off the pitch, but the club everyone's looking at the moment and just saying, and it must be frustrating for the fans. They're saying, what's going off there? There's all sorts of bits and bobs and jibes at each other. And what they need to do is collectively get together, and hopefully if they can string some performances together on the pitch and, pull themselves into a position that we'd expect them to be in.
Yeah. Moving on to Leeds. Won 3, lost 5. They're in 15th position. I had them again being up there with the Evertons and challenging. They had a good second season. This I'm surprised.
I think they're having a terrible season. I really do. And anyone I speak to, either a Leeds fan or not a Leeds fan, when I talk about the ridiculous hackers that I put on every Saturday, which is 50p each way to win about 120 grand, which hopefully one day might come in. But I never ever put Leeds in my hacker. And I say that, and I did it this week, and I put Brentford in to win. And obviously what happened, but whatever I do, whether I back Leeds back against them, it just never comes off, and you can't see a pattern in what they do. They've got this style that's 100 miles an hour. They man mark people, which is strange in this modern game, and again I think it's this second season syndrome that they've got where everyone's used to what they do now. They realise it's 100 miles an hour. They realise that you're going to be man marked. So if you want to pull one of their defenders out of position, you can do. And they're probably getting teams a bit more savvy to, what they're coming up against. So, again, will they get relegated? I don't think so. For me, definitely below expectations that I thought they would. I thought they'd, come in and progress after, another season now, and then look at strengthening and going a bit further on. But they don't seem to. And I think if they're not careful, they could find themselves in a bit of trouble.
I do. Like I say, I think that it's a second season that usually defines a team. If you can battle to 17th in that first season and then build on that, then it's a good, it's a good platform. But when you come up and have a good season, then so much is expected of you. But then we're coming on to the big team now. We'll come back. So I think we might have a few things to say about this one, but there's a small matter of a game coming up on Thursday that could be a bit season defining. Let's have a look at it. That kind of sums up Leicester's season. Just
Do you
how
know
it
what? I was
performed.
just thinking exactly the same, Chris. You know, the European form has been so in and out and erratic, so many highs and lows. And then I think, yeah, do you know what? That's just mirrored what we've done in the Premier League.
Yeah. Just going to say good evening to Dan, the aforementioned Burnley fan. Thankfully, he wasn't in when we were picking his team to bits. He's currently laid in bed eating one of his kids' selection boxes. Quality control, of course. I saw what your good lady Dan was putting up on TikTok earlier. I hope you're enjoying the selection box that she's put together for you. And that isn't being rude or anything like that. It is. Well, I say that. I don't know what was in all the boxes. But yeah, Leicester City. We both thought the same there. I just, like I said earlier, I think in a normal season, I would be more worried. Because other teams you would think would be, having good runs, but nobody's, once you get outside those top few teams, nobody's having a good run, and that kind of is good for us because nobody's really getting that far away. We're not necessarily sort of losing that many. I say, although we've lost 6, we're drawing ones we perhaps should be winning. I don't know. Is it too much that I expected? Not necessarily to go on, because I don't think we're going to break into that top 4. I think that's more than clubs. We've got money, yes. We've got good owners, yes. But we haven't got the sort of money that the big ones have got. But I would just want us to tread water this season.
Yeah, it's. I think we all. Hi, David. You're right. It's a real difficult one. I think we all. I don't think we got carried away, but we all expected that we'd carry on where we did last season. And then you've got to think that we're not expecting anyone else to improve. And of course, that's not the case. There have been, quite a few teams doing better than we thought they would into the mix with us. And I think, what we're looking at is defensively, we're quite shaky. We're shaky at set pieces. We're defensively quite shaky. It's not been solved all season. And, the fact is now we're nearly halfway through the season and it doesn't look like it's any more solved than it was after the first month. And, it always seems that there are issues there. I mean, I've always said that when the beginning of the season, Vestergaard came into a team that he thought might do well and didn't, and it might have knocked his confidence. I'd be ready to put him back in now because I think he deserves his chance because he's been sat on the bench for a bit and nothing's improved. And I think you really need to keep changing it rather than just saying, I'm going to stick with these guys because it isn't working at the moment. We're conceding goals too easily. And like you've said, there are a lot of teams around us that are all doing what we're doing. And that is showing no consistency whatsoever. And you would think if we were on our game like we were last season, we'd be a team that would be climbing above that group just in the fact that we think we should show some consistency. But, again, the formation changes, we're accommodating players. Are we accommodating the right players? Are we getting that right? At the minute, it doesn't seem like we are, if I'm honest. So, there's all sorts of things to look at. But with the resurgence of the teams below, with the managerial changes and what have you, it's going to be a really difficult season. And I think there's at some point when we know we're okay and we're safe that the work. I think you just write this season off and start thinking about what we're going to do for next season. And this game on Thursday is massive. I was talking to a colleague of mine at work, and he says, "Oh, top of the league, Leicester, that's it." And I went, "No, mate." I said, we lose to Napoli, and that's it. We're not even going through. So. It's such a big game, more than capable. We showed that at home. Obviously, we conceded the goals, but we showed that we can get into them, and we're more than capable on Thursday night of going and not getting beaten. But as we've both seen, we wouldn't be 100% confident in that happening.
I mean, it literally. When I say we did the Europa preview show earlier tonight, it from a neutral's point of view, it's a great group. Because you can go from bottom to top as Leicester did with one win. We can't finish below third, which is the good thing. So the worst that can happen is we'll drop into the conference. But it is. And I say season defining. We've had so many of those where we've seen, the Man United game, the Watford game, where you think this is it, we're going to kick on and we're going to move forward, and we don't. We're kind of like that car that's just come out of the hill, but then got stuck in the next one.
Yeah, it's I do think it's a massive game, and I think for anyone looking at the league, at the Europa League, they'll just be wetting themselves to watch this game between us and Napoli. It's just such a big, important game, and you hope it's a good spectacle as well. But obviously, we hope we can get over the line. And like you say, I think we've all said if they do this, then it's going to be all right, and we're going to show some form, and we'll sort things out, and we'll have some injuries coming back. And we've said that several times already. But you do feel like this is that game where if you can go away, to Italy, get the right result, come back. And then you think, can we kickstart from that? Hopefully we can, but we've said it too many times.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, this sums it up from the match on Saturday. And I've quoted this because I just think it was unbelievable. I think it was Martin Tyler who was commentating for Sky, said, sometimes getting a corner against Leicester is as good as getting a goal. And the words hadn't even left his mouth. And because they'd just got a corner at Villa, the words hadn't finished leaving his mouth, and the ball was in the back of the net. Right. Dan thinks that we should join him in the below expectations bit. David says, I just hope we don't look back at this period and say, wow, if we'd beaten a Burnley and a Leeds and a Southampton and not lost to Brighton and Aston Villa, we have made top 4 of Europe. Maybe this is just the season when we have to slap ourselves and say, reality check, guys, and like you say, let's get this season out of the way and move on. But I have a feeling I know where you might be putting us, but where are you going to put us?
Oh, it's got to be below. It was. We will talk to the end of last season. And
oops, I just slipped it in the wrong one. Then.
I think even I said I hoped we could push for a top 4, but I think we're now going to see a resurgent Man United. We've seen a resurgent Tottenham. And then you've got Arsenal there and thereabouts, West Ham still performing well, and then you've got the top 3, so it's just a massive sort of task now. And I do feel like we could still have a strong season. I think something like 8th would be, or 7th would be fantastic, really, based on the current form and where we are. And then it really is looking for recruitment and who we can bring in to improve the squad for next season and hit the ground running.
I'm going to say good evening to Scott. Welcome back, Scott. Gone off for a brew and come back for the second showing. Dan says, go on then, Chris, slap yourself. Do you know what? From anybody else, Dan, that'd be fine. But I do get worried about you like slaps too much. You really do. Hello, Mrs. Riley. How are you? That's his mum, by the way. And then as he does that, I look after. He says, "Hello, Mrs. Riley." Indeed. I look after you. Look after your mother, do you? Like running up behind her and making a jump in B&Q or wherever you were. I don't know what you're doing with that cactus, but it made a jump. Moving on, Julian, Liverpool, good season for them. In the top 3, they're second at the moment. After they lost to West Ham, they've just won 4 on the trot, knocking goals in for fun. Really, that Wolves did well to keep them down to 1. I wouldn't be surprised to see them up there at the end and making a challenge.
I know. I think it's down to those 3 at the moment, and Liverpool, like I say, they reinvent themselves a little bit, but they've got this formation and the personnel that works, and they just seem to be able to reproduce it at that highest level year after year after year. So they're definitely going to be up there. I mean, I've just been watching them against. I don't know if they're playing tonight.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure.
They're on in the Champions League, and they've just equalised. Oh, AC Milan. They've put out quite a few youngsters. They've kept Mane and Salah in and Minamino and what have you, but they've got quite a few youngsters in there who are all holding their own. And it looks like they've got a good future at the club. So, I don't think they're exceeding anything. I think they're probably where you would have expected them to be, but it's just because the bar's so high with them anyway. You just expect them to be up there, top 2 or 3 and definitely challenging for him. And, with the losses that Chelsea have just had and that Liverpool just had as well, it's just making it a fantastic season.
Oh, it is. It is. You want to see it, don't you? You want to see sort of a choice of winners, not end up like it, too. Well, it's getting a bit like Scotland, but at least there's a few more teams in it. But I suppose for me, I'd expect them to be up there. Would you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Now then, what can I say? Manchester United.
Well, do you know, for me, I'd put this as expected, because under Solskjaer, with all due respect to the lad, I never really thought they'd do. I thought we'd finish above them, actually. I think, with the changes, the recent results, they've had a bit of a resurgence. So the way they expected them to be, they're definitely not exceeding. I don't think they're underachieving, but it's just where they are now as a team and a squad, and where the club is. And again, lots of turmoil there this season, with the manager and speculation about him leaving, which has just gone on and on and on until they really had no choice, especially after that, results away at Watford and the shenanigans that I thought went on afterwards with the players on the pitch, and that I thought was all ridiculous. But for me, they're where I thought they would be. I didn't think they'd be challenging. I didn't think they'd be top 5, which they may now go on and knock on that door. And there's a massive rebuilding job, but that rebuilding job's been really going on since Ferguson left. No one's been able to do it, and you've had Moyes, who's obviously a good coach, and then you've had some big names in there, and not one person has really got hold of it and sorted it out. And it'd be very interesting to see what they do in the window. Bearing in mind that it seems like they're waiting for someone at the end of the season. I don't really know how that quite works at the moment, and Rangnick's staying on as a consultant, although he said he'd like to stay on longer. So it's a really interesting situation there, because they're a massive club. They've underperformed for years and years and years, and you think now this might be the time where they do turn that round a little bit. But it's definitely one to watch, but definitely where I thought they'd be. So I'm not going to say underachieved, because I didn't really think they'd achieve much.
Yes. I mean, this Wreck-It Ralph, whatever he's called, that's come in, Ragnarok, he sounds like an extra off Vikings, doesn't he? I mean, I think he wants the job full time, doesn't he?
He said so, yeah.
And is he the man? I mean, Man United. I mean, they've got the team, haven't they? Is it too late for him to turn it around? Is it too far behind?
No, I mean, everyone who spoke about him speaks really highly of him. I think Tuchel played for him. Klopp's been with him or come up against him. They've all got the most, biggest amount of respect that you can have for someone. And he's obviously well regarded. But then the other side of that, I think, I can't remember a big club that is actually gone and taken by the scruff of the neck, and where he is now and things like that. And I'm not saying the small clubs where he's been, but when we talk about the bigger clubs in Europe, but he might be the man, and he seems that he's come in, and it seems like everyone around him at the club, the players and the coaching staff that they've retained, it seems like they've all got a huge amount of respect for him. So that, for me, is a massive plus for the club stepping forward, that they can look at this guy and go, right, he's the leader. We're going to do what he says, and he's taking us on this journey for the next 6 months. And I think if you do see a marked change, there's every chance that he might retain it. But the other side of that for me was that when Solskjaer came in, there was such doom and gloom around the club with Mourinho in charge and the way he treated Luke Shaw and spoke about players and the results, that all Solskjaer did is come in and lighten the mood, and it ended up with results on the pitch, and then they gave him the job, and we all know how that finished up. So, this guy needs to prove his credentials, and we'll certainly see, from now to the end of the season what he's got in the locker.
So, yeah, you're going for as expected then, really,
as expected for Manchester United. Chris, just in the fact that I didn't expect him to do much anyway.
No. I've got to just play this especially for Dan, because he's giving me some earache. In the...
yeah, baby. Yeah.
Oh, see what his mother does to me. Has she had the latest maintenance check, Dan? I'm sure I still shouldn't be paying her for you. But Manchester City, top of the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm so surprised, and like I say, I would never ever have any criticism of Pep Guardiola. I think he's one of the most amazing managers I've ever seen, and everywhere he's been, not just the fact that the teams have been successful, but what I particularly look at is the way that he improves individuals. Raheem Sterling wasn't the finished article, even though he was a fantastic player at Liverpool. He's come to Man City and he's a different player. John Stone's another one who I'm a fan of. He's made another brick tonight, unfortunately, but I still think Pep's really, really pushed him on to, a different level. Gundogan, when he first came, rarely played, and you're thinking, why did they buy him? And then the last season, he's like the best midfielder in the Premier League, bar none.
Yeah.
And that's including, and you can see that the way that he brings people in, the way he introduces them to the team quite slowly at times. And I think his coaching's on a different level. And even on that, not just, like I say, not just the team, the way he elevates the individuals. So, they're not exceeding because they are what they are. For me, I just think they're doing what I expected them to do, which was challenge for the league, and I think they're going to do that year in, year out whilst they've got Pep in charge and, the squad they've got. And a lot talked about, the game tonight they lost against Leipzig is that, again, it comes up, do they need a striker? They've not got that focal point, and are they missing that focal point? They've managed ever so well without one, but I still feel like they do need one. But, doing amazing, they roll teams over effortlessly. The game against Man United was a stroll, even though it was only 2-0, but it was an absolute walk in the park for them. So, doing amazing, but I expected amazing.
Grealish, £1 billion. Surely, I mean, if you're spending £1 billion on a player, surely he should be the first name on the team sheet every game. And it makes you wonder whether Pep didn't actually want him.
Well, this is the first time, Chris, and I'm glad it's happened, that I'm going to disagree with you wholeheartedly.
Go on then. Hang on 1 second. If this is going to happen, I'm going to. No. I'm not going to mute you. I'm going to give you full stage. There we go.
Oh no, I'm under the spotlight now. I feel a bit of pressure. No, I think with this, with the Grealish, I do think he's as good as Pep thinks. I think Pep spoke about him the other week and just said that he's actually doing everything I want him to do, but I want him to be a bit more selfish. It feels like he's coming to the team, and because he's in a team of superstars and he's got this amazing manager and what they've achieved in the last, 5 years or so, that he's a bit. He's playing slightly differently because he feels like he might be a bit overawed and he's waiting for that to come out of him. And I think, one day he will be on the sheet, every week. And it was the same with Mahrez. Mahrez goes there with the reputation he had. And again, Sterling, Stones, all of them, he introduces them at his own pace. And I don't see, the issue with him not starting him, even though he paid all that money. I think he realises what an asset is going to be going forward. And he just needs to make him the right player to fit into what they want to do. But he can see that he can do that, but it's just not going to happen instantly. Having said that, for all the players that he has brought in, I think Grealish has probably had more game time in his early stage of his Man City career than many of the others, which probably says a lot about how Pep thinks about him.
We will agree to disagree on that point. It's only 11 shows in and what have you. So it's taken a while for us to disagree. I think we might be agreeing on the next couple of clubs, though. Having gone from the heights of Liverpool and Man City to the lows of Newcastle and Norwich. Let's go Newcastle first of all. They could be the richest club, not in a top tier.
Yeah, I mean, right now I would say that they're exactly where I expected them to be, but that was under Steve Bruce, and you could never see that altering under his tenure. He not a manager for me. Although my local club Sheffield Wednesday, the fans were gutted when he left because he was really sort of turning it around, and maybe that's his level. But I think he's taking this club on because it was his hometown club, and I think it's been a real fraught trip for him from start to finish. It's, no one's really warmed to him. They were gutted that they lost Rafa Benitez. He was, a legend in their eyes. They've brought in the, what they consider the understudy, and he's been treated like that, since day one. I don't think there's been much respect from the fans, and it's probably the fact that he could put up with Mike Ashley that kept him in the job so long. So, I expected them to be around about the relegation zone this season, and this is one of the ones I was going to mention in that Eddie Howe comes in. Absolutely think he's a great young manager. Really, really do. You can't deny what he did at Bournemouth. The problem that he's got, and the win, I think, at the weekend was massive, is that every weekend the pressure can mount up if you don't get that win, because however good you are and however much money you've got to spend and what players you can bring in, if you don't get those points and then that gap sort of stays the same or even becomes wider, it just can become that thing that it becomes unachievable to get out of it, because the fear that you take into every game as a manager and as players that you don't want to concede, it alters everything how you play, because you're conscious that you don't want to concede, and you can be a bit frightened in how you play and not play your own game. So they're in a really precarious position. And the other side of it is they've got all this money, and I'm sure if they go and throw money at players and wages, they can attract them. But the other side of it is our top players in Europe wanting to come to play for a club, despite they knowing, the wealth of the club now, but in the relegation zone in the Premier League, and what happens if they did go down. That, a top player is going to look at Newcastle and think, but what if they get relegated? And then what do I do then if I'm, leaving wherever I am now and I might be in a good position? So it's a real tough one, I think, for at the moment. And I'd like to see him come out of it. And so I think for me, they'll probably do better than survive, but I think survival would be massive for him then to get to the summer and to another transfer window and then really stamp his authority with who he brings in, the personnel, the shape, the way that they play. And that would be amazing for them. I really think they've got to work hard to get out of where they are now, but I fully expect them to, but it's not a foregone conclusion by any stretch of the imagination.
I think, and good evening to Nippon. Thanks for popping in. How the devil are you? I guess the thing with Eddie Howe is I don't know, because I think Newcastle, the owners are pretty pragmatic. They know that they're not going to come to January and buy a load of players in and then be sort of second or third in the league at the end of the season. But I think, you've got Eddie coming in. He obviously wasn't first choice. I'm sure, that he doesn't cry too much every month when he gets his wage packet, but he's not, and I just think, does he go in knowing he's probably just keeping the seat warm for somebody in a couple of seasons when they're more established?
I mean, I think, I do rate him. I think he's got a chance of doing well. He's definitely get the tools to see if he can do well. And I suppose it depends on the success, because I've said this many times for the last 20 years, is that the people who make the biggest decisions at a football club really don't understand the game of football. And that, that is a bit of an indictment right through the they want to sack a manager and bring another manager in, but he's just got a name or a reputation, because I think of all the top managers in Europe at the moment, they've all failed somewhere. So there's no reason to say they're not going to come and fail at your club. You can bring Mourinho into Newcastle. I think I heard something the other day about Benitez out and before the Arsenal game and Mourinho in. But Mourinho's had a shocking time at 2 Premier League clubs despite his previous record. And for me, I don't think I'd want him to come to Leicester right now. I don't think he's the right fit. So, with Eddie Howe, I think I said a few weeks ago on the show that they maybe wanted a bigger personality like a Conte to come in and really grip them and drive them on, like you can see him on the touchline. And that's definitely not Eddie's style. But I think if he can get his message over and working with, and no disrespect to, the Bournemouth squad he had, probably a better caliber of squad with the potential of bringing in better players that he wants to in this window, I think you could really see, them, get themselves out of this position and probably climb the table. And then, the pressure then becomes in a bit like the Frank Lampard situation, coming in to manage a team of youngsters, but then given the money to spend. And all of a sudden, it's gone from well done, Frank, to come on, Frank, what's happening here? And Eddie could find himself in that position where he gets them out of the doo-doo this season, gets some cash to spend. It doesn't come off, and it'd be a very, very, it'd be like a mirror situation to Lampard was in. But I think he's got the ability to do it, but he's never had the opportunity to do it. So it'll be interesting.
It will be.
Brings in and what the results turn out to
and
be.
he's a lovely guy, and after what he did at Bournemouth, bringing them from the literally minus 17 points in the bottom tier up to the Premier League, he's obviously got something about him.
Definitely.
But on the season so far, I mean, has it been awful? Has it been that bad? Or
do you know what? I think I need to stick someone in awful, so it might as well be Newcastle, because however bad I thought it was going to be with Bruce, it has been a lot worse than I thought. So I'll stick Newcastle in awful, although I expect it to turn around quickly.
I didn't think he would be that bad. I for them, I really didn't. I think we probably need a quick break before we have Norwich and 2 awful ones together. And you might remember this, Julian. It would if I pressed play, wouldn't it? That would help.
Leicester City FC on this day in history with Leicester Till I Die TV.
1995, 7th of December. Mark McGee was unveiled as Wolverhampton Wanderers' new manager after walking out of Leicester City, just over 12 months after Brian Little quit the job. Leicester fans were furious and accused McGee of betrayal. His response was to say, "I think everyone at Leicester knows what type of person I am." The response was emphatic but unprintable. I think I've hated the guy ever since. Brian Little walked out, and I got that because Villa was his club. It's like when O'Neill went to Celtic. I understood that. McGee, I remember him saying Wolves are a bigger club, and O'Neill came in, and the rest is history. Did you ever? I mean, that was just before you joined Leicester, wasn't it? I don't suppose you really knew much about McGee.
No, I don't, but I know. I mean, Scotty Taylor, I think he played for him at. I don't know if he played for him at Reading, and he spoke really highly of him. He was a big fan of his, and I was actually hoping when I was at Bristol City that he was going to come as manager, but I got Tony Pulis instead, and I lleft shortly after. But no, Scotty spoke very highly of him. He liked to play football. He said he was a great bloke, great manager, and I suppose at the time he thought that Wolves was the better option, the bigger club, and. I'm not sure on his thoughts. When I came to Leicester, no disrespect, I didn't think it was like a massive club, but it was certainly a great step forward for myself. So it was a no-brainer to sign. But I wonder if he looked at Wolves and the money at the time there and what he thought, that he could bring into the club, that, he felt justified in that decision. And, like I say, it was... For us, it was, for Leicester as the club, it was great. Martin came in and after a bad start, turned it around. And, like you say, the rest is history. And it was a big springboard at the time for the club. I know they've had, bad times after that with Peter Taylor. But, it feels like, I felt for me, not just because I was there at the time, but what we did and all that, but it felt like a real big turning point for the club when it had been a bit topsy-turvy. We went up, stayed up, and there was a bit of stability. Unfortunately, like I say, in the Taylor years, not so difficult, but it's like the club had moved up a gear, if you like, and it wasn't going to drop back down to where it had been before. So credit to Martin.
I mean, the funny thing is, and this kind of sums. I mean, he did have us playing very nice football, and which was obviously the reason we went to Reading and poached him from Reading. But it's quite funny how we go to Reading and poach their manager. Wolves come to us and poach ours, and it's two different reactions. Oh, it's all right for us to go and poach him, but nobody comes and poaches him off us,
Yeah, I mean, that's just football, Sometimes you get a player that served you well and he goes and wants to go and play somewhere else. And at the end of the day, for the player, it is a job. And I think there is a lot of loyalty in football, and there's a lot of disloyal players as well. But sometimes we often talk about if a tradesman got offered a better job at another company and was offered a lot more money at a bigger company, would he go in? Yeah, he would without blinking. And why is that, different for players? But fans are a lot more emotive than that, and they have that loyalty to the club, and they expect the players to have that as well. And it is a difficult thing at times. So, like I say, with Martin, strange one, he just felt that the other option was better. It worked out well for Leicester City in the end.
A few weeks ago, we did a show, and one of the topics on there was basically quite short and simple. Norwich City, why? And they're suddenly, I mean, it's odds law. They'd obviously made the decision to sack Farker before the match when he went on to win it with the win over Brentford. Then, of course, they quickly appointed Dean Smith, which was great. I think that was a good move for them, a good manager for them, and they beat Southampton. But overall, I mean, there's 3 teams at the bottom there, all on 10 points. I think the thing with Norwich is, though, you look at their goal difference, they've only scored 8 goals all season and then conceded 31. They might as well just pack up the bags and get ready for going down, mightn't they?
Well, I think you probably not know this, Chris, but I think Dealey is obviously a very big fan of yours. She must obviously watch the show and watched our breakdown of where we think Norwich are, and then obviously decided to take action on the back of a couple of experts like you and me, talking about her beloved club. Because it did, funnily enough, happen shortly afterwards. But it's interesting what Dean Smith can bring to them, because he brought something to Villa to get them out of that league, and he's now an experienced Premier League manager. And first thing you'll know, obviously, like you've just mentioned, the goals conceded, it's not acceptable. You can't expect to concede that many and be successful, especially when you're finding it very difficult to do it at the other end. So his first thing for me will be working on defensive shape, formation, how they're going to play and be more difficult to beat, and not conceding so many goals. And I think he's a defender himself. He's more than capable of instilling that. And again, it's going to be so interesting. Like I say, they're on 10 points with the other 3, but they look like they might pull a few results off, and they're not going to go and beat the bigger teams. But as we've said, there's a big mishmash in the middle of the league that's not really doing anything consistently. And are they going to go and nick a few more points than we expect them to and pull themselves out of it, which they have got every chance of doing?
I mean, so far this season, I was tempted to say awful, but then nobody expected. I don't think there's one person out there that did not have, well, certainly not that I spoke to or did shows with or went on other shows, that had Norwich anything other than in the bottom 3.
No, I mean, I just thought bottom of the league, and after quite some time, they were had 2 points. And I think that's when we did the show and just said, what's the point in Norwich? Wouldn't it be better that another club came through the Championship other than Norwich, who really wanted to come in, roll the sleeves up and give it a good go, because it feels like they're quite passive and not, happy to go down, but quite accepting in relegation, thinking they're going to have another good season in the Championship. And why does a team that dominates the Championship come up and not perform as well as other, promotion candidates can do in the Premier League? So, but they've changed it round now. I wouldn't put them in awful, because there's just been that recent turnaround.
Would you have as expected? Because it's where we thought they'd be. Yeah,
because I thought they'd be bottom of the league, and they actually look like they might be able to knock a few points together. So like I say, for Dean Smith, it'd be a great story if he could keep them up. Absolutely fantastic story. I think harshly done by. Within a week, he's in another job. Other people have obviously, respected what he's done, which is fantastic. So that would be a fantastic, story for this season.
I think it would be up there with the Leicester's great escape if he does that with Norwich. And
I think so. And I think, for me, I'd be looking at making him manager of the year, because he's gone into an absolute, excuse my language, shit show. And it looks like, I mean, it's only early days, so there's no need to get carried away. But it looks like he's got them at it, and they've scored a couple of goals, and they've got a couple of points under him. Great. Let's see what they can do. But I think it's still a massive ask.
Yeah, I mean, he's got literally they've played 15, but in the 4 games that he has managed them, they've got 5 points, so they've got half their points in 3 games. And of course, Craig Shakespeare's there as well, which will always hold a special place in my heart for him. But like you say, if he keeps them up, I think he could be manager of the year. But we always know it will go to whoever sort of is at the other end of the table. The Saints go marching on, but it's like they're marching in mud. 16th at the moment, 2 wins off the bottom 3, 21 goals conceded. I expected them to be a little bit better than this.
Yeah, I did, and I think these are another club that are in a strange place. I mean, the manager's got a really good reputation in football. He's very well thought of, even despite the couple of 9-0 defeats he's suffered. But I think this is probably below their expectations when he's been there for the time that he's been there, and then all of a sudden, we know he's not got the fantastic resources, but he's actually not got such a bad squad, and he's been working with that for a few years, and I think you would expect it. And I think these are one of the ones that have really got to look over the shoulders. We've talked about earlier in the show about the managerial changes. Newcastle definitely for me will improve. Leeds will nick a result here and there. Everton have just climbed away with that win. Who knows what Norwich can do? Watford, Christ, they can go and get battered one week and then go and do the unexpected the week later. And
yes,
I think Southampton for me are in a bit of a precarious position.
It's so easy as a manager of a club or as a club to have 2 9-0s, but both times after those 9-0s, he's pulled it together. He's turned it round. I mean, a result can absolutely devastate your season. I mean, I go back to Leicester City playing Wycombe under Peter Taylor. Sorry, it always sticks in my throat that. When it was the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, Wycombe were the lowest team that was left in the draw. And we all said, a home draw against Wycombe would be the best thing that could happen. That's what we got. They beat us. I don't think we won another game that season. And obviously the following season, we just went downhill and out the league. So the fact that he's kept it together after those 2 9-0s, I think is credit to him.
Yeah, I mean, 9-0, God, it's in that league, I mean, a 5-0's a horrific. Wherever you are in the league, 5-0's horrific. If you're the bottom of the league, you still don't want that and still don't expect it. So to endure that result twice and then to come out the other side, he's obviously a mentally very strong guy and very sure in what he's doing despite, these kind of results. So, like I say, I think he's got a good reputation. He's had his good spells, but he's in a funny sort of position at the moment where, I think he needs to be looking over his shoulder. It's he needs to get a couple more results quickly before he's out of the danger area, and it could really go quite horribly wrong for him.
Yeah. So, always say, for me, it's below. I don't know what you think.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I thought that he kicked on a bit, and they haven't done. And like I say, I do fear for them.
Fred Red, I'm just going to say thank you so much, sir. $5 donation. Thank you. It all helps towards keeping the channel running. And he says Aston Villa under Gerrard are making up for Dean Smith's failures, mediocrity. They went from 16th to 10th in just 1 month. And he says he loves the content, which is always great to know. And like I say, your support is absolutely much appreciated. I'm going to be honest with you. If I was talking to Steve Lynix now, he'd have Tottenham in awful because he's admitted he does the prediction show with us, and whoever Tottenham and Arsenal are playing, he hates them so much. He even went for Norwich to beat one of them the other week. What he'll do when they play each other, I don't know. But I mean, they're just like shooting themselves in the foot, don't they? I mean, they've kind of turned it round. They've won 3 on a trot. They've got Conte in, who I think is an absolutely brilliant a choice for them. And he's played Spurs like a fiddle because, turned them down at the start. Nuno, I did think wasn't a good choice, and he was the 10th choice. To be honest with you, but he knows he's on a payday if he goes in and he gets sacked. And along comes Conte. Oh yeah, okay, I'll come now, but I want this. I mean, he's just got control of the ship, hasn't he?
Well, he's like, and it would be the same everywhere. He's just a breath of fresh air. His enthusiasm, his energy on the side of the pitch is, we've seen it all before, and probably the right person to bring in. But then, when you're looking at Tottenham and you've got Daniel Levy, again, making the decisions who I would say I might be completely wrong, but does he really know the world of the game of football that well? Probably not. He's a very astute businessman, and like you say, his original choice in Nuno for the manager. We sort of look at that and think, blimey, that's a bit odd. But he's got rid of Marino, not done his own work, and not got the backup or got someone lined up, and they've ended up, and then it seemed like a bit of desperation to try and get Pochettino back, and who you've sacked. So it is a funny one with those at the moment. The new stadium, everything, it just smacks of a big club, but I don't think they are a big club, if I'm honest. I think they're a big club off the pitch, but they're not a big club on it at the moment. And hopefully, for them as a club, that Conte, turns that round, because he's quite capable of doing it. Again, we talk about this January transfer window and what he can potentially do in that, and the players that he'd like to bring in and see the improvement from that. But for me, I think they're underachieving from where I thought they would be and where they should be, if I'm honest.
Well, you see, now
thank you, Terry. Have a great Christmas too.
I kind of don't know if I agree with. You got them as below expectations. So you have the final say. You are the one with the knowledge, sir. I just think, clubs do this all the time. They, like you said before, they sack managers without having a plan. And if you run in a business, you don't do that. You go to your member of staff and you say, right, if you don't pull your socks up, if you don't do this, and you have a few warnings, but in that time, you must have your eye on, well, if we do sack him, if he doesn't pull his socks up, this is who we're going to get in. And like you say, maybe I think that's probably what Leicester did with Rodgers and Puel, as you said earlier. And I think Nuno was a case of, shit, I've gone through 9 managers, all said no to me. Oh, this guy's got experience in the Premier League. He's got Wolves into Europe. He'll do. He'll do for us. And I think it was one of them. And I think, for me, it would be. I've got to be honest with you. For me, it would be above expectations. But I think that's purely Conte coming in and turning it round.
Yeah, I think for me with Nuno, when he came in, I think that would have been one of the factors in the Harry Kane saga. And I don't think players should have this right. The fact that they earn as much money as they do seems to give them this right. But I think Harry Kane would have looked at him and thought, this club's not going in the right direction. I need to go somewhere else. I think that would have been a massive part to play. I think if Pochettino would have come back, or, obviously Pep's not going to go there, or a Klopp or someone of that ilk, Harry Kane situation might not have even come about. And I think that was a big thing where he's come in and probably not got the respect of the players. He's not done enough. He's not a big voice. He's quietly got on at his job and done ever so well at Wolves. But Wolves is a different kettle of fish to one of the big boys, like, or big clubs like Tottenham or any one of the top 3 or 4. So, I think it was very underwhelming as a choice. And that's sort of why I'd put them there. But it'd be interesting to see, the next 6 months.
It is, and we like I say, we'll go now. Watford are next, and I think we all sort of said they would have a different manager by the end of the season. We didn't expect it to be quite as early as it was. Claudio, for me, They didn't do a West Brom. Watford were where they were where we are at the moment, 11th, and that was when they sacked the manager. So Claudio wasn't taking over a club fighting relegation at that point. They are now, and I was surprised when I looked at the table the other week for a show that they're actually in 17th place. Now they are in a relegation battle, only 3 points above the bottom 3. I don't think Claudio is the man for a relegation battle, as proved at Fulham. I just don't know. It's like if you get Warnock in, that he's probably going to try and keep you up. Big Sam will probably try and keep you up, but I can't see Claudio doing it. Yes, they've had a couple of good results. They've had, they beat Man United 4-1, but then hey, even we managed to do that. They beat Everton 5-2, although a few goals at the end to make it look better than it probably was. But 3 losses, but they're where I expected them to be.
Yeah, I mean, I think the club's a bit of a shambles with the way decisions are made in the board, and the managers coming in and out. That is one that's ridiculous. It's one in, one out, and why is he better than the one that you've just replaced? There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. And I think at the moment, and I said this when Ranieri took over, has he done his homework in what he's inherited squad wise? Because you're going to have to cope with the squad that you've got till the January window, and what resources are you going to get to spend once you get to the January window? So I'm not sure what he's going to be allowed to bring in or spend, and if he can't improve it, because it's a bit like Palace, but not as good a squad as Palace. They've got some players in there who on the day can be absolutely frightening, can make the difference between winning and losing, but they're not performing week in, week out, and that's why they're at Watford. Sarr.
Yeah.
If he was that good, which he is on his day, but if he was producing that week in, week out, he wouldn't be at Watford. He'd be at Man City or a Tottenham or wherever else. So he's inherited some decent players who can turn it on and off, and you see that in the results. They go and get battered, then they go and beat someone unexpected, then they get battered again. It's just like they walk in the ring and swing as hard as they can, and they might knock someone out, or they'll get knocked out themselves. And I think it's going to be like that to the end of the season, and it will basically be how many times do they knock the other team out and get a win. I can't see him drawing many. I can see him conceding loads. I can see him scoring loads. And I wouldn't want to predict where they are, but I think as a club as a whole, they're awful, but probably as a team, probably where I expected.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. So, as expected, I'm quite enjoying it because this is a different way to doing it, to just are they good, bad, or ugly. I think it's nice to do it this way. West Ham doing a Leicester.
Yeah, I think for me as a footballer, you're sort of pleased for David Moyes. He was well thought of at Everton, went to Man United. I mean, like probably the worst thing he ever did, trying to follow Alex Ferguson. Did he think that he was going to go in there, inherit the team, and it was just going to keep performing, and he would just keep tinkering with it, and all would be good? And it just went totally the other way, and it has done ever since. And it like I say, it's been a bit of a chalice, that manager's job. But he's obviously got something about him. He went to West Ham before, didn't do too bad, then left, then has come back. So they obviously see something in him. And, it's a bit sometimes where I think managers just fall on the right squad. And what he's got now, he's got some wonderful players. I don't think he's got much past the 13 or 14 players, but he's got a wonderful 11 that fit into how he wants to play. Antonio's coming into his prime. Souchal, scoring goals and performing for them. Quite a lot of other players, experienced players, and they look difficult to beat, and they look like they're going to give teams a game. They don't do it every week, but they're doing it most weeks. And obviously, the results against Liverpool was like absolutely fantastic. And I don't think any team goes to West Ham thinking, this is 3 points. They know it's going to be a tough game, and they know what they're going to face, and it's going to be an onslaught. They're quite physical, but they play good football as well. They always seem to score goals. So I think, I don't know if I'd say overachieved. They probably have, but they sort of overachieved last season. They've just continued on that. But I actually thought they'd dip off. So they're probably doing better than I expected that they would do, if I'm honest.
I would agree with that totally. And I mean, they didn't want him, Moyes, at West Ham.
No, they didn't.
No. And especially when it was a case of him coming back. Oh no, God, we don't want him back. He kept you up last season, and it's great. I love, I have nothing against West Ham as a club, but I think it's great that we're not doing it. So I'm glad to see there's another club up there in the mix with with these so-called big clubs. And I thought last season might be a one-season wonder, because the season before that, of course, they had been fighting relegation, but he has he's done it again, and he's doing well. And I say I wasn't they're not where I expected them to be. So well done to David Moyes, and he's taken some sticks since he left Everton. He struggled at Man United, but I think even Man United fans would give the credit that he probably didn't have given the time that he should have. And how the hell do you follow Sir Alex Ferguson? It's like with Newcastle, you want to be the manager that follows the manager. So I'd agree with you totally there.
I think
now Wolves. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say there's a couple of interesting points that I find, with West Ham on the successes. I feel they're in a bit of a similar situation to where we are. And the first thing I would say is, like you say, when he first went back and the fans didn't want him, as fans, are we always right? No, we're not. And that's a perfect example that they didn't want him back. But I think really now he's probably in an interesting situation as we were last season, where we've not kicked on. And I think his signings in the January and the summer transfer window and the next 6 months will be really interesting, because if he doesn't introduce a bit more or freshen the squad up a bit, he could easily slip into what we've slipped into this season. They're a very similar team to the resources of what they spend, what they've got in the squad, the size of the squads and what they've got outside that 11. And it'd be an interesting one to watch. And I certainly hope he kicks on and does well. But I think he needs to, the recruitment in the next 6 months will be very interesting for West Ham.
Wolves, a bit of a strange one, this.
Yeah, I really like the manager. I really like him a lot. He's again not someone who you thought, oh yeah, get in. As a Wolves fan, did you think, oh brilliant, we've got him in and great, and probably as underwhelming as Nuno going to Tottenham, but I quite like the way he's going about things. They seem to have had a bit of resurgence in form of late, and they're not doing too badly. So. Another one, for me, mid-table is going to be great for them. And what can they build on that? Can they be another Leicester? Can they be a West Ham where, strength to strength with a little bit of investment here and there, can they grow in this league? And I think they potentially could do that, but, they'll probably find it difficult. But like I say, potential there. And I really do like the manager.
I thought when they got rid of Nuno that they would struggle. I have to be honest with you.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Because I thought he seemed to be the perfect fit for them. In as much as, he'd got them into Europe, he got them top half finishes, but something went on behind the scenes, allegedly. But he's got them sat there in 8th. So I had them down, let's say, for a relegation battle. So for me, they're actually doing better than expected. But what would you say for that one?
Well, no, they're definitely exceeding for me. I would have thought at best mid-table, and I would have thought they might be top of the bottom half of the table, if you know what I mean. So, where they are now, and they've really gone quietly about the business. They don't seem to make a lot of headlines. You don't often see the results, and then you look at the table and think, oh, they're actually doing all right at the moment. Then you don't really notice them. Actually, they're sort of under the radar of everybody, but quietly going on, about the business. So, it is a big club, though we probably don't see it as a big club in the Premier League as it is now with all the other big clubs in there. But we know it's a big club. Obviously, McGee thought that, and I think they're doing really, really well. And I say again, another interesting one in. Who do they bring in? They're another West Ham, they're another Leicester, great 11. What is beyond that 11? And that's where teams struggle with, injuries that we had to deal with last season that we did do. But, other clubs won't always deal with it as well as we did.
So looking at that then, we've done it. And it'd be interesting to come back at the end of the season and do it again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and compare it. But we've got Brentford, Brighton, Palace, West Ham and Wolves exceeding. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man United, Man City, Norwich and Watford as expected. And that doesn't mean that they've had a good season before people go, why is Norwich up there? But Norwich are where we expected them to be, Villa, Burnley, Everton, Leeds, ourselves, Leicester, Southampton and Spurs probably below what we expected. I'm sorry, Newcastle. It's just awful. It is really just awful. But I'm just quickly before I let you go, the results from tonight's Champions League. So we're looking at the teams that are going to be coming down and possibly playing us in the Europa League. Let me just. There we go. The ladies can have a better view of you now, there, Julian. Group A, Man City and Paris Saint-Germain are through. So Leipzig, it looks like me, are down to the Europa.
Very good team.
Yeah, I mean, I presume. So I'm guessing here that the third team drops down and the fourth team's out altogether.
Yeah.
Club Brugge, who we had in our group that time, they were fourth, but no, Leipzig are going to be dropping down.
Yeah.
In Group B, Liverpool 6 out of 6. Atletico sneaking through at the end. Porto are going to be joining us, who of course we've played in the Champions League before as well. Milan bottom of that group. AC Milan. I mean, that was a surprise. And C, Ajax and Sporting Lisbon are through. Dortmund.
Right.
Bless them, that's on goal difference. So they must be sick. Sporting have gone through, same number of points. Just they've got a 2 difference compared to a -1. And then Real Madrid in Group D, along with Inter Milan. No surprises there. Sheriff, who have no idea who they are or what they are. All we know is that that somebody shot them once. And I don't think Eric Clapton's ever been brought to justice for that. So we've got Sheriff, Dortmund, Porto, Leipzig, all joining us in the Europa League. Just in case we don't do the work on Thursday, we finish second and we have to go into the playoff. But a quick last question before I let you go. How are Leicester going to do on Thursday?
God blimey, let's toss a coin and
exactly.
I hope the tails never fails. They're capable of it. It's going to be fascinating. I'll definitely be glued to the screen, and just hope they can do it. And it's I suppose it's how they manage the game. If we don't get beat, we're okay. But it's a difficult thing to go to a team like that and just think, you know what, we need to draw this game. And I think we need to go there with a good plan to win it. If I'm honest with you, but,
definitely.
Sitting back's not the way to go about it. So we can do it, but we all know the form this season has been a bit in and out. Team selection, formation, all going to be really, really interesting. And we'll just see what they comes up with, and fingers crossed we get through.
Yeah. They are beatable. They have been beaten this season, but then everybody has, and it's great going into the final game. And there are so many permutations. We tried to work it out on the show later, and I got a headache. It was just impossible to work it out. Julian, just want to say thank you so much for everything this season so far, and have a great break. Enjoy the party tomorrow.
Will do.
Remember to keep off the photocopier.
Don't even know what you mean, Chris.
No, I bet you don't. I don't want to see any cheeky pictures. But enjoy it. Come home in one piece. Have a great Christmas to you and all your family.
Too. Yeah, you too.
And we'll catch up again in the new year if that's okay with you.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Have a good one.
And you as well. Don't do anything I wouldn't enjoy.
I'll be fine.
All the best. Thanks for it, Julian.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, thanks to Julian there. It's great. I love these shows. It's just great to see. I have my thoughts as a fan, and they're not always good thoughts. They're not always clever thoughts. They're not always correct thoughts. But it's always nice to have an ex-professional's look. David, enjoyed for Julian there. It's a busy month and it's a busy week, and we've got this coming up tomorrow. Nine o'clock tomorrow, another ex-pro, Stephen Leinix down the wing, joining us 9 o'clock tomorrow for the prediction show. A small matter of Newcastle. I know it's not till the end of the week, but we've got a big match on Thursday that's going to be taking the back end of the week up. Just a little match against Napoli. So tomorrow night, join us for the predictions. Join in. Let us know if you agree or not. I've just got ahead of Steve. I'm a point ahead of Steve again. But yeah, I'm about 6 behind Brad. So we don't mention that bit. Thank you so much to everybody that's joined in. David, thank you very much. It's a great hour plus. Good to hear from a professional, and it's so appreciated. He makes himself so accessible every week. Totally agree. Totally agree with that. It does give another. We don't often disagree. We did with Spurs, but yeah, it's great, and he does give his time up, so it is always appreciated. Scott, thank you so much for joining. Terry, I think you've gone now. Fred Red 50, thank you, and thank you so much for the donation as well. Much appreciated. Turf Morehouse Dan, thank you. Hope you're well, and you've stuffed yourself with chocolate. Thanks for your donation as well. Nippon, you popped in there, nipped in and nipped out, and it's great. I've enjoyed these shows. I'm going to miss them over Christmas, but we will be back in January with them. It's only fair that we give him a bit of time off. Let him have time with his wife and kids, eh? But thanks everybody for joining in. Couldn't do it. Well, it wouldn't be worth doing it without you. We'd still probably do it. Still sit here and natter football all the time. We will see you tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Stay safe. Thanks very much for everything. Good night now.
Thank you for watching. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Hello, Matt Elliott here.
Hi, Alan Smith here.
Hey guys, Ian Hume here.
Hi everybody, Jerry Taggart here.
Be sure to watch
Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV
For all the latest Leicester City news and information.
You can also subscribe on YouTube and various social media channels
for the latest updates and news on Leicester City.
Come on, you foxes!